Hey everyone, welcome to this week's live stream, goRIA live stream. I'm Jeff Benjamin, senior columnist with Investment News.
And I am Chuck Vela, the founder and CEO of Sovereign Financial Group and RIA enthusiast.
Yes, that RIA enthusiast part is I think it's on his business card.
Right.
So Chuck, what's hot this week?
You know what's hot this week is compliance. And it's very funny to say that because usually hot and compliance, sexy and compliance really don't go hand in hand. But I tell you what, it's getting really exciting to the extent compliance can get exciting. I know you just wrote a piece about this. It's up on the Best for Breakaways.
Yeah.
I'd be curious, what did you find out?
Yeah, it was. I didn't really know what I was looking for going into this. It was an assignment, so you do what you can, you uncover as much as you can, and I got a lot of stuff about this. I kind of assumed that a lot of RIAs, depending on their size, would have compliance departments, or one person who happened to own the firm was also had to, he drew the short straw and got the CFO, CCO title.
CCO.
But what was really interesting is that how much outside help these RIAs get and need. There are variations, a full continuum from the rare situation where somebody says, I'm just going to do this myself, keep my fingers crossed and try and, stay within the lines. But the other extreme is like a full-on outsourced chief compliance officer. There are firms that provide that, a lot of them actually.
Yep.
It's kind of developed into a little bit of a cottage industry. And then there's the everything in between, where you'll have somebody that's a chief compliance officer, but they say, I just want somebody that I pay for, 4 hours of consulting a year to give me an idea of what's to look out for, or what's new, or what are some of the, the new hot button issues, because, regulation is always changing. But what was interesting to me is that almost across the board, with very few exceptions, RIAs are saying you cannot do this without some outside help, and there is outside help available. These guys are saying, I don't care how big your firm is, you've got to find some kind of outside consultant or a lawyer that specializes in compliance or something like that. Just doing it alone, you're going to miss it a lot, because you're not going to be able to stay up to date, and it is an extra expense. And that's kind of what you and I talked a little bit about, Chuck, and you're in the field, so you can relate to this. But you got to do the balancing act of, should you hire another person just to be, an assistant to your clients, maybe even a team, against cost of, some of these outsourced solutions, which can be expensive, but expense is relative, right?
Absolutely. And it is true that it does run the whole continuum. You could do it all yourself. I don't know of any RIA, even sort of a one-person shop, that's doing it completely themselves. I would say at a minimum, you really need a compliance consultant to give you the calendar, right? And what I mean by a calendar is you need to do this in this month. You need to do that in that month, and so on and so forth. And I would say at a bare bones minimum, you would need that. On the other side,
right,
of the extreme, you would have a fully outsourced solution where you actually have an outside firm that will be your CCO, like actually on your ADV form, they are the CCO.
right.
And that's good too, definitely more expensive than just the consulting aspect. But it also would be in lieu of having your own in-house chief compliance officer, and that's that's $100,000 position for the most part, right? I mean, you're not going to get someone to act as a CCO in-house for much less than that. Now, again, pros and cons, right? And I think that's what we're trying to do with this live stream and this entire goRIA franchise. Whoever's listening, they're thinking about going RIA. So one of the line items on the pro forma they're putting together, I know I had on mine, is compliance. What is it going to cost me? I would say, unless you're doing it yourself, well, let's look at it doing it on the cheap, right? Which is not necessarily wrong, but less expensive. If you're a 1 or 2 person shop, you probably don't want to do a completely outsourced CCO unless you have a huge amount of AUM, which a lot of 1 and 2 person shops might have, right? But if you're looking just for that calendar and the ongoing advice and the bulletins, that's probably about $10,000 to $20,000 a year, right? But that means there needs to be someone in-house that's going to interpret those bulletins and make sure everything is happening. The other side, probably for about 100, 120,000, you can get one of these firms to actually be your CCO, and everywhere in between. Now, outsourcing it sounds good, but, and I think you uncovered this and discussed this in your article, that doesn't mean you have no liability. Right?
Yes.
At the end of the day, the buck stops with you, right? So as much as I like to outsource, we do have our CCO in-house. Yeah. And if something really goes down badly, at the end of the day, you're holding the bag, right? The SEC doesn't want to know anything about outsourcing. If it's your firm, it's your problem. And I suspect somewhere in those contracts, when you're doing a fully outsourced CCO, I'm sure there's somewhere, on item 17, subparagraph 4, item 3, that says, we're going to do our best to make this work properly for you, but if things blow up, ultimately that's going to be on you. I don't think they're going to be paying fines or anything else that the SEC might levy. So kind of buyer beware a little bit. Now, the other thing too I can mention.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, it's a really good point about the buck stopping here. That is the issue. No matter how much you outsource, no matter how much you even if you hire a full-on outsourced CCO, they're not taking the liability. They're just making sure that you're knowing what the rules are and hopefully following them. But it's still on you ultimately. It's just like, well, there's all kinds of examples I don't really need to get into, but
yeah, no, I think that's a very valid point. So it's not like you just write a check and you're paying to get that liability off of your shoulders. You're not. It's more of an ease of management, and I'm sure they're doing a very thorough job. But I suspect they have systems in place on their end to cover their butts, right? To make sure, like, hey, we told XYZ RIA to do A, B, and C.
Right.
They didn't do it. That's still going to be on you. So the good news is there are a ton of resources. Those resources are scalable, all the way from giving you some support to a lot of support. But at the end of the day, the onerous is on you. Let me share some more good news, though, right? So technology, which is changing everything. And I've always loved technology ever since I was a kid, and really loved the technology available to us in the RIA space. There's a lot of really cool technology that's being developed right now and being used right now that helps compliance officers, whether they're in-house or outsourced, do their job more easily. And I think that's a really, really good thing. What we've done at our shop, and this little shout out to Riskalyze now, of course, Nitrogen, and there's going to be a lot of advisors watching this that use Riskalyze, now Nitrogen. Here's some really cool news. That could be used as your compliance solution, right? So they right now have their own in-house compliance tool. Orion has something similar as well. There's a lot of other firms developing things. Well, we decided to base it off of Riskalyze because we happen to be a Riskalyze shop. So our advisors are very familiar with Riskalyze. They know the risk numbers. And what we have done is we have essentially pared down our compliance to one of 5 numbers, right? So what we have to do, and we're in the process of implementing this right now, is have our advisors pick a number between 1 and 5. How simple is that, right? So 1 is capital preservation, 2 is conservative, 3 is moderate, 4 is aggressive, 5 is speculative. And for those of you familiar with the Riskalyze risk number, and I think most everyone here either uses it or certainly has heard of it, those risk numbers would then fall into those bands. So for example, 1, capital preservation, would be a risk number of, let's say, 1 to 15. Conservative, the number 2 for us, would be 15 or 16 to 25, and so on and so forth. And then what we've done is worked out a system where we're able to track the risk number, meaning the category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, assigned to that household or that account, and then make sure that we are able to track when those portfolios are getting out of whack, right? Out of tolerance for what those risk numbers should be. And what we have found with that is it really resonates very, very well for advisors that happen to use that risk matrix. And even for ones that don't, everyone can understand the numbers 1 through 5, right? Capital preservation, conservative. And technology now allows us to do an overlay, if you will, on our firm by making sure we know what those risk numbers are at the account level. We happen to use portfolio groups, which requires a little more massaging, the same basic idea. And the end result is a relatively easy way to do your firm oversight. So for folks that are listening that are looking to go RIA, like with anything in the RIA space, kind of the good news, bad news is there's a lot of choice, which I think is more good than bad, right? But you go through those choices and figure out what's going to make the most sense for you, and know that you could retain as much of that compliance responsibility as you want in-house, or farm almost all of it out, but always make sure that even when you're farming it out, to know that you're still holding on to the real liability. So you're going to want to make sure that whoever you're outsourcing to is really on their game, because ultimately it's your firm in jeopardy if not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff. I want to give a little tease for what we're going to be live streaming about next week, and then I'm going to let Chuck kind of direct you to where you can get all of our information and all the goRIA information. But next week I'm going to talk about fee offsets and different ways that financial planners like Chuck are maybe could or should or would be able to help their clients get some of these commission-based insurance products without increasing the fee at the client level.
Yeah,
right.
I can't wait to see that. I think that's it's going to be a groundbreaking concept. We have to just get over some regulatory hurdles, right? But I think it could be really disruptive and sort of that final frontier, right? We could provide fee-based everything except for like the 3 use it or lose it insurance policy types, right? The term life, the disability, long-term care. There's no asset on which to apply a fee to. So how do you do it? Fee offset. Well, fee offset right now means rebating. Rebating is, of course, illegal against regulations. But why? So I can't wait to dive into that next week. But for now, I could tell you, if you want to learn more about this compliance, there's a great article on the goRIA website. It's under the Best for Breakaway section. And I think, Jeff, that just got published. I saw it in the hard copy, actually, this week, I believe.
This week, yeah, right.
Yeah, that was really cool. So again, if you want to learn more about this topic, compliance, or about all kinds of stuff going RIA, there's a nice archive building up at the goRIA website. How do you get there? Very simple. Go to Investment News. On the upper right-hand side, you'll see a tab that says goRIA. You click that, and you'll see all kinds of information, the compliance that we're talking about today. There's a great one. I believe the podcast that's top of the list right now is the one we did with Cheryl Penny from Dynasty, who has some really good insights on how to break away utilizing kind of a back and middle office solution. So a lot of good content there. So go check that out. And lastly, I could say, if you're looking to connect with Jeff or myself, find us on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook. Connect with us. If you have some ideas of topics you want us to cover, whether as a podcast or a live stream or an article, let us know. We're super open to that. And we would look forward to connecting with all of you. So I think that's about it for this week's live stream, and we'll look forward to see you guys next Wednesday.